Well, you guys know my awesome podcast audience. I love you guys. You all know we love talking about legacy. And boy, oh boy, Dr. Dionne Payn is leaving a legacy. Dr. Dionne Payn, who is on the podcast with us today, she's a resident of Australia. It's pretty early over there, isn't it?
That's right. It's about 7 o'clock in the morning.
Thank you for getting up so early for us. We appreciate you. You're also the CEO and founder of the High Impact Property Investments. You're speaker, coach, and author of Ethical, E.T.H.I.C.A.L, Property Investing, the Busy Professional's Guide to Double-Digit Returns from Affordable and Sustainable Homes. You've also made it your life's work to create ethical property investing, affordable housing, and end homelessness. I'm so excited to hear about all of seriously so excited to hear about all this. So, Dr. Payn, tell us a little bit about you in your own words. I mean, set all humility aside and share with everyone what it is you're doing and how you're helping people move forward in that area.
Yeah, cool. Well, look, it started with me and my husband needing to find a solution to uh, being able to find an affordable home on a single income because I'd left my studies, I'd finished my studies to have children. So that's where it started. And the first couple of properties that we did, it was really about sort of creating wealth for ourselves.
Right.
And then accidentally found a piece of land, and the developer had already got approval for 14 one-bedroom townhouses.
Uh-huh.
Three of them were for affordable rental, and that was all locked up in the council approvals as well. So they had to be rented for 80% of the market rent for a minimum of 10 years and held by what we call over here community housing providers.
Okay.
So that was in place. But the rest of the project, because they were quite small units, they were 60 square meters, we were able to price them at an average of 350,000 in an area where the median house price was 650,000. So I had
Wow.
friends that actually were able to buy into that complex. It changed the trajectory of their lives. It changed the trajectory of my life because after realizing that, I could see that not only could I make money, but I could do something to be of service to my community as well. And from
Mhm.
that point, I just recognized that I didn't want to do property in any other way.
Mhm.
It took a little while. There were some challenges with that project, and it took a little while for me to get my head around how I was going to do it. And I sort of removed myself from having to do it to helping developers that are already doing it and already have that track
Right.
record of success and
Right.
helping them to create the money to be able to go ahead and create more of these. So it's really about how can we scale this, particularly now because I mean, I'm not sure where you are in the US, Laurie, but over here, 2017 we had floods, 2019 we had bushfires, we had the pandemic, and then recently we had floods again. So um, there's always been an affordable housing crisis in this particular area. Um, having the floods and seeing that reminder that yes, we are at the effect of what's happening with the changing climate and sort of the burning of fossil fuels and the amount of water that's now in the atmosphere and all of that. We're at the effect of that. So how do we like I said, we had an affordable housing crisis beforehand. It's just
Yes.
been exacerbated. So how do we do property? How do we house people, which is a fundamental human right? How do we do
Right.
it in a way that is beneficial to them, but also beneficial to the investors that put it in? Because we have a perception that the government should fix it, and they're not. So private people like you and me have to step in and do this, but everybody can win from this. So really, it's for me, it's about creating that framework where that is possible. There is that triple bottom line approach, and we are creating homes for those that need it in a way that's affordable, supports them to thrive, and that's all really important to me.
Okay, first let's back up. High five. Oh my gosh. Okay, so I'm in Pasadena, LA area. There is nothing affordable about Pasadena, LA area. So Wow. I mean, I am just inspired to be a better, more creative realtor by everything that you just like said is possible. So, okay, couple questions first, because I'm not familiar with Australia's real estate rules and regs and so forth. Do you have to be licensed to do what you're doing? Or how, what are the requirements for what you're specifically doing?
Yeah, cool. Well, that's an interesting question because I am, even though I've got a property development background, I'm actually more in the financial services industry now because
Yeah,
raising capital comes under
yeah,
financial services laws. So I don't have the license myself. I work as what we call a corporate authorized representative for somebody that does have a license,
yeah.
which means that I can raise money from certain classes of investors. So at the moment, I can raise money from wholesale and sophisticated investors, which in the US you would call accredited investors.
Right.
Yeah.
Wow. I mean, oh my goodness. Okay. So there's so much in this. I'm just like the fact that you want to truly like you're saying, okay, we get it. The government should solve this. And yet the government hasn't yet. Why not the realtors, the real estate industry, the investors who actually know land development, know how to build these homes, know how to home people? Why not them do that? And that's
Exactly.
like really making a amazing difference in the world. Thank you, Dr. Dion. That is just honestly absolutely beautiful.
And you know
So,
what? Like just to answer your question, like the why aren't the government doing it? They're not doing it because they would lose votes from the people, right? Because we're all in a position where we can see land prices appreciating, the value of our homes are often going up. So, for the government, it's like, okay, well, why rock the boat when the majority of the population are homeowners? So I don't see that there's any real incentive from government, and I'm seeing this in Australia, I'm seeing this in the UK, I'm seeing this in the US. I'm not seeing really the incentive to do that. And also, the government have a tendency to be led by business, right?
right.
So, if that's the case, then why not let us be the businesses that dictate what happens with the government, but for the betterment of society rather than for the destruction of it? That's my
Right.
take on it, anyway.
Yeah, wow. I mean, I'm really, I wouldn't even know, I wouldn't even know the first step in how to do that. How to, like, I just know how to get comparable market analysis so that I sell your house for the same or more. Like, the fact that you develop a space that, I mean, just the numbers you shared, right? Everywhere's 650 in the neighborhood, and you're able to develop the space that's 325,000 and yet still make a profit.
Yeah,
Like, they still, it's not even like, oh, we're doing this from the charity of our heart. Yes, you are, and still you're making a profit too. That, like, that's a story that's
absolutely.
broke, my friend.
And the cool thing about that is that developers in general are a really creative bunch.
Yeah,
I was attracted to learn about property development because I could see that it was a creative way for me to get into property. The normal, sort of get a job, save up money, all of that traditional way of doing it. At the time, and we're talking about, 10 years ago when I started, 8, 10 years ago, at the time, that was hard because we're on a single income. Now it's much worse because not only do we have older women, like older single women, that maybe their working careers are at the end, or they're they're sort of coming to the end of their working careers, so they're not in a position to save the money to get the deposit to be able to get a mortgage. They can't even get a mortgage anymore.
right.
And a lot of that, particularly with women, happens because women take time out of the worst workforce to have children. They end up having less superannuation. When relationships break down, and what are we on at the moment? Is it 50% of relationships end in divorce? When
Yes.
those relationships break down, that it's often, not always, but often the women that suffer as a result of that and end up financially behind where they were before. So we've got, if we're talking about pandemics, we've got a pandemic of women, of older women, that can't find affordable housing, and so they're technically homeless because they're living in unsafe situations, maybe camping, maybe sleeping in their cars, maybe couch surfing. It's insecure. And then from that, there's a whole lot of trauma that comes in, because when you don't have that basic need of shelter met, there's all sorts of stories that go on in your head around worthiness and your value and all of that. So, like, and it's nothing about the women. We're talking about women that are professional,
Yes.
women that have had really good careers. Some of these women have, been CEOs of companies, but just due to the way that the system is set up, and not knowing how to game the system, as it were, they're in a position where they're in these insecure housing situations. And these are our grandmothers, our aunties. These are people that we know, that we love, and yet they're suffering. So yeah, like that's just one subsection of society that's feeling really challenged. The next subsection of society is the young people. I mean, when you've got house prices that are increasing, but wages are not increasing that much. And back in the olden days, with my parents, I talk about. I remember for them when interest rates was 17%.
Yes.
Um, and they really struggled. It's amazing that they managed to keep their home, but at least the gap between wages and mortgage payments wasn't that high.
Right.
Now it's wages and house prices. The gap is so wide. It's pretty much impossible for anybody that's a young person in a regular job at the moment with a regular income to be able to save the deposit. So then they rely on bank of mum and dad,
Yeah.
and that's okay if you can do that. But
Yes.
if you're not in position to do that, then it's really hard. So there's sectors of the society that are at risk at the moment. And we all have a duty to do better. And it's not, there's the charity aspect of it, and charity is really important. But why not do it in a way where everybody can make a profit, everybody gets lifted up, and then we can lift up the people underneath, and the people underneath that as well. So I think that this model, like, I'm really glad that I've hit on this model. I'm really glad that, Providence provided that, I could be the one to share this message, because I get really excited about it. It's like, it's everything. It's everything about how we treat each other, how we treat members of society. It says a lot about us as a person. And I just get to express my love and appreciation for humanity through the work that I do. And I'm so grateful for that.
Yeah, I mean, I am so grateful for it too. Thank you for sharing it forward with me. It's inspiring because, I mean, for example, I'm talking to a few families that are in the same exact circumstance that you just talked about. That is, it is going to be a pandemic. You have these people, these couples that are married for 30 years, right? And maybe they worked side by side, or maybe one stayed home and the other one did, right? Either way, there is a when you break down all that they've accomplished and separate it, you now go like, whoo, where am I going to live? you
Yeah.
know and there's no alternative to that, right? I mean, you literally, if you are to move it forward per the laws of the state, it's a separation. And it's sad. It really is sad. And then I agree 100%. These young youth, I have four sons myself who are all getting launched and started, and to find an affordable house for them, well, that's the couch of mama, right? So, how do we do it better? Well, Dr. Dionne is doing it better. You are launching them out of the couch of mama. You're, you're helping and supporting these men and women that are struggling with such life altering moments. Like, you just don't even know how to work through that. So, Dr. Dionne, how did you come up with this model? Like, what? I mean, I understand how you got there, but what? Where was it birthed from?
Oh, it's birthed from a lot of mistakes that I made when I was doing my development career. Um, I yes, made a lot of mistakes, but thankfully,
Yes.
the mistakes that I made were happening when property prices were rising, so I didn't feel the pain of those mistakes as
Yeah.
much as I could have done.
Right.
Um, but I remember that there was a moment where, particularly that 14 townhouse development I was talking about, it wasn't all roses. I fell out with my joint venture partners, and I fell out with the builder. Well, the builder actually went broke, and I
Yeah.
recognised that I'd chosen the wrong builder, and
Yeah.
I recognised that there were some things that were not quite right. So that was a painful learning experience, and that led to a lot of soul searching. And it led to a lot of me doing a lot of that inner work through different personal development courses. And there was one in particular where we had a challenge, and I'd sort of I'll call it the wilderness,
Yeah.
where I'd sort of done that project, was kind of licking my wounds, and was trying to find my way. I couldn't really find it, um, and I decided that if I couldn't find the right partners, then I was going to go it alone,
Mm-hmm.
basically. And so then I went and did this personal development course. So I did a series of them. And we had an experience where I just knew that I had to collaborate. Like, it was just
Oh, I love that.
all of these things that I wanted to do, I couldn't do by myself. I had to find people to work with.
Yeah.
And then, having gone through that experience, I found my business partner very soon after. And he was amazing. Like, he became my mentor and friend. Yeah, still is. We're not working as closely together as we were, but he still is somebody that I look up to and really admire. And I remember going to him and saying, "Okay, well, look, amazing developer. He's got like years of experience, developed a lot of properties." And I was like, "Right, I'm going to work for you and raise capital for your project." So that was all great. But then I was raving with a friend, and not raving, dancing, just sort of giving it the rah, 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 rah. And I was telling her about what happened, and she said, "But there's something else. Like, what is that?" And I really recognize that I see all of the challenges that are happening in the world. I feel really passionate about them. So I was going off at her about how coal mining and other activities were basically raping and pillaging the earth and raping and pillaging the people. But there was so much money going in that direction. What if we could divert some of that money to things that made people and planet to thrive? And so I just out of nowhere just blurted out, well, I'm going to raise $1 billion for affordable and sustainable homes and all of those kinds of ethical property
Yeah.
projects.
Yeah.
And it was one of those moments where I said it, and it wasn't from here. It was really from here. And I sort of caught myself like, where did that come from? And then, I sort of spoke it to a couple of people. Well, I went back to my business partner. I was like, well, number one, I can only raise capital for you if it fits these criteria, if it's going to be ethical, if it's going to help people.
Right.
And he was like, great. I've been wanting to set up an ethical property fund for the past 10 years. Let's do that together. So I was like, sweet. I've made the right decision in terms of partners. This is good.
Yeah.
Um, so as a result of that, again, we spent quite a long time just thinking, well, how are we going to do this? Spent about 9 months going, well, sort of having the conversations, and I recognized at that time, like, I was just so bored. Like, the whole fund management side of things, I just went, this is not for me. I just want to be out there having conversations with people. I don't want to deal with the regulations. I understand that the regulations are in place for a really important person, but I'm not the one to navigate that. I'm the one to be talking to people and inspiring them to be doing better things with their money. So, look, it took about 9 months of sort of going through that process.
Mm-hmm.
And then we just went, okay, well, what about if we do a project? It's not going to be an ethical project, um, sort of under my framework. But what about if we do a project together? So he saw a commercial building. It was sold as one building, but there were 5 rooms in it that could be, or 5 spaces that could be sold separately. So we went through the process of that. We worked with somebody else, and she had the database of investors. So we all partnered together to make this happen. Investors got an amazing return on their investment. It was like 30% per annum on their money.
Wow.
But from that, because of the mistakes that I'd made before, I was like, how can we give the investors this really great experience? So it's not just, okay, I'll put my money with you and then go off somewhere else. It's like, how can we bring them in and be really part of this process? So I set up a network where um, basically investors were invited to the Q&A webinars on a monthly basis. So the developer would talk about how the project was progressing, give them all of the stats, the financials, all of that, and then they'd be able to ask questions. And what came from that was this really lovely collaborative experience where I remember one time we were on a call and one of the units wasn't selling, and the developer was sharing that. And then all of these ideas came in about, well, could you market it this way? How about marketing to this group of people? Da, 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 da. And so, everybody got to have input into that. And I was like, that was not intended, but it was really beautiful.
Yeah.
The other thing that I did was because I knew that some of those investors didn't have development experience, and I really wanted to show them the process from start to finish. So, all of the collaboration partners that we brought on board, the different consultants, so whether that be the mortgage broker or the insurance agent or the real estate agent when it came to selling them, or the building inspector, all of those consultants, I interviewed them, and it was like, 15 to 20-minute interview. And then
Yeah.
we posted those up to the members area as well. And then we had networking events too. And all of that just, I didn't realize at the time that I set it up what it would do, but what it did was just set the stage for more transparency, more accountability, people feeling that they were part of the process. So it wasn't just that they were investing their money, they were investing themselves as well. So
Yeah.
then when it came time to launch high impact property investments, which we did in the February afterwards, and we had a project. I remember our conversion rates the first time we did the raise, and in terms of the number of people we had on the database, we converted about 1.2% of those into investors. The next time we did it, 6% of them came on because they knew us, they sort of knew, liked, and trusted us.
Yeah.
And they were just like, well, whatever it is that you're doing, as long as the numbers stack up, I'm not talking about blind trust or anything here, but whatever we were doing, they were like, yes, we're on board. And that's the experience that I've had. So accidentally, again, I've created something where it solves a problem that is traditionally in the property development industry, that of a lack of trust and transparency. Where in this case it's like, no, 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 we're all friends. Let's go on the journey together.
Yeah.
And I really love that model. And that's how I see all development should be, because if people can understand it, at the
Mhm.
moment, people don't understand property development. It's just
Right.
developer over here making a truckload of money, sort of getting their way with council and putting buildings on where they don't think buildings should be.
Yeah.
But if it's more of a people-led movement, then we're
Yeah.
actually going to make some real change, and that's what's important.
Wow. So, I guess the reasonable question is, could you see that happening here in the States?
Absolutely, it can happen anywhere. It
Wow.
can happen anywhere. As long as there's people that have got money, as long as there's land to develop,
Huh.
as long as there's developers that have the will to do it. Yeah,
Yes.
absolutely. And so my company, High Impact Property Investments, yes, we're based in Australia, but we're a
Mhm.
global organisation, and we actually have developers in the US
Uh-huh.
that we're raising capital for as well.
Yeah. Wow. That's just beautiful. I mean, it's really just so beautiful. Because the one thing we have here is a housing crisis, right? It's a huge housing crisis right now. And so you're tackling so many elements in one beautiful movement. Where, I mean, get me just if I'm wrong here, but you accidentally stumbled through, made lots of mistakes in it, and yet is still creating a difference in the world.
Yeah, absolutely. And sometimes that's the journey. Like, I don't believe that we're born to just exist and then die. I believe that all of us have the potential to do something amazing in our own way, depending on, sort of how we were brought up. Like, I don't want to get too woo woo here, but um, we come into this life with an intention.
Yes.
And the journey of life is to fulfill that intention.
Yeah.
And I just feel that what I'm able to do at the moment. And so life is good. I mean, it's not all roses. It's not that I don't have arguments with my husband or my children, or I don't stub my toe. Like, it's not like that. But no, like I just feel really fulfilled, and I get to have conversations like these and
Yeah.
share that message. And I think that that's it. Like, just in that sharing and inspiring people to think in a different way, it turns what seems like this really impossible situation to something that is possible. And I'm not the only person that's doing it. Like, there's lots of people doing it in their own special fields,
Right.
and it's that, sort of when it's all seeming quite dark, and you see these little sort of sparks of light, and then there's more sparks of light because it all catches on. That's
Yeah.
the point of life. That's why we're here.
Right.
So to be able to be in this position and share what I'm sharing, and be able to talk to people like you, Laurie, is really cool. This is what life is about.
Yeah, I just got to tell you, like, my podcast was born out of someone pushing me to do it. And yet here it is. And the one beautiful thing about it is that I get to just talk to these new people, and I'm like, what the heck? That is awesome. How are you doing that? And then for those of you who do watch this on YouTube, you get to see the beautiful lit up smile and joy in your face because you're living your truth. The one thing that just you are bringing to the world who you were meant to be authentically through everyone else. I mean, gosh, so beautiful. So blessed, honestly. Um, so what is something that everyone, if they needed to know this about ethical, affordable housing, like my brain says, why don't you just charge more? Like there's more money to be made. And yet you're like, no, we're ethical, affordable financing, right? That's what we are. Like, what? Tell me, please.
The one thing. Oh, okay. So there's a book that I love called The Soul of Money by Lynn Twist.
Hmm.
She was the CEO of the Hunger Project,
Hmm.
and it's not that I hadn't sort of heard the concepts that she spoke about before, but the way she expressed it was so beautiful to me, and it sort of really resonated. But we hear people talk all the time about how there's so much abundance in the world, and there's enough for everyone.
Hmm.
Um, and that's what I got from that book with Lynn Twist. It's like, well, when we come from this, there's not enough kind of mentality,
Yeah.
that's what we see.
Yeah.
But really, when we step back and go, well, actually, there is. I mean, how much money is has been printed in the US, in like in all these different countries? There is so much money available. That it's not just money. It's like you see an orange tree. Like, orange trees know abundance. Like, and the sad thing about that is that a lot of it goes to waste unless somebody's really um, you know
Right.
on it and
Yeah.
scraping it up. So there is abundance everywhere.
Yes.
We get to do property in a way that shares that. We get
Oh,
to do property in a way that helps people feel fulfilled, that they're
yeah.
being part of the solution.
Yes.
So I guess the if this is my last sort of snippet, I would say that ethical property investment helps people to grow wealth, make an impact, and leave a legacy. And it's not just for the person that's doing the investing; it's the people that are the sort of benefactors of that, or sort of benefit from that, because that changes the trajectory of their lives as well. If you've got somebody that's paying 80% of their income on rent, they've barely got enough money to eat and get medicines.
Right.
But if you've got housing for that same person that is 30% of their rent, it gives them an opportunity to make their lives better. It gives them an opportunity to make the lives of the people around them better. And it's that ripple effect that sometimes we don't appreciate it, but it's actually really important.
Mhm.
Us giving somebody an opportunity to live in an affordable home gives them an opportunity to make their situation better, and for their children and their future generations as well. This is important work. And don't let anybody tell you that it can't be done, because that's BS, and I call it. It can be done, and we can live in a world where everybody gets to benefit from the fruits of their labor and their investments. And the one thing that the last thing that I will say is that we all make a choice every day with where we spend our money and where we invest our money. And so the choice that we can now make is, are we going to choose to make every dollar that we invest and every dollar that we spend to the benefit of humanity? Because then that's blessed money, and that's where the abundance comes from.
That was beautiful. You said that just beautiful. Like, oh, so thank you. Thank you for following
Pleasure.
your heart. Thank you for being willing to take the risks, being willing to lean into your failures and turn it into something beautiful. Because so many people wouldn't recover from a failure in that way, right? And that, thank you. Thank you for sharing that.
My
So
pleasure.
I mean, if anyone were to want to do this or want to be in touch with you, and I hope that everyone wants to do this, I hope that everyone downloads this episode and hears it and sees that they too can help families. I mean, obviously, I'm a real estate agent. Homes are important to me. And the fact that you can provide a home in an affordable way and still yet it's profitable, it just blows my mind. It just blows my mind.
We have to talk later. Like, I think
Yeah.
there's so much that we can do together.
They're honestly, because I'm like, oh my gosh. So, anyways, I am just so excited. But if you could, if anyone is interested and or what are the best ways for them to get in touch with you direct, aside from, of course, we're going to have it in all of our stuff, but please share forward your contact, where you're at.
Yeah, okay. So I'll give you my website, which is www.hipi.global. I've written a book. So yeah, the book is called Ethical Property Investing.
Yeah.
And for anybody that is listening to this, I'm happy to give them a free copy of the downloadable, of the PDF version of the book. And
Yeah.
so, Laurie, I'll give you a link later on where your guests
Oh,
can
thank
go
you.
and download that.
Yes. Yes, we love that. We love that because I'm going to order it and just read it because I'm just finishing up the guest that I just had on last week, and his book is fantastic. And now I'm like, oh my gosh, I got to get caught up and I got to read yours. But
Great.
I am so just excited for what you are doing over there. And I love that you inspire us to be able to do it here as well in the States. And I just love that you're helping people find a home because everyone, my one thing is home starts with you. You are home,
Mm,
right?
yeah.
And
Yeah.
and for sure, 100%, you are creating home for people. Thank you for doing that. You're such a
My
blessing.
pleasure.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. Thank you.